Now in this video we will talk about another standard called multi-speak. Multi-speak was developed by National Rural Electric Cooperative Association NRECA USA in collaboration with key industry vendors. Multi-speak covers applications of interest to mainly the distribution utilities. So when we will compare with common information model, we will come to know that multi-speak only talks about the interfaces related to distribution applications. So multi-speak standard is mature, but it is still growing with adding some new features. It is in use at hundreds of utilities, mainly in US geography. It is a mature interoperability testing platform and applies to all types of interfaces where we need the data exchanges. As in case of SIM, in this case also you will see that the implementation is done with the help of XML, web services and other batch transport profiles which are defined in the standard. So more details on multispeak you can get from www.multispeak.org. Now let's see the similarity between multi-speak and common information model, particularly IEC 61968, which is for distribution. The SIM distribution and the multi-speak have certain similarities. What are those similarities? Basically, both focuses on the interfaces between applications as opposed to data structure which is internal to the applications. So as we saw in case of common information model, in multi-speak also the focus is on sending the data from one application to other application in the form of a standard template. So multi-speak will also give you a standard XML template which will be a base for sending data from one application to other application. So in this way also multi-speak will standardize the data exchange between various applications. In case of multi-speak also you will see that it is based on various classes as we saw in case of common information model. Multi-speak also uses XML schema for the definition of messages. However, the tags will be different in SIM as well as multi-speak. Now in this case also you will see that messages have control area and the payload. Control area will talk about the versions and other important informations while payload will contain the data. In multi-speak also we will have nouns and verbs for definition of various messages. That means the classes and all you will see are mostly based on nouns and verbs, but the nouns and verbs values will be different in both of the cases. So in SIM the name of classes will be different from what we have in case of multi-speak. Now let's see what are the differences between multi-speak and SIM. Where SIM covers the transmission, generation, distribution as well as the energy market, multi-speak is only concentrated towards the distribution systems. So the best comparison is between IC 61968 and the multi-speak, where the common focus is the exchanging the information related to the distribution system. Multi-speak is focused to meet the electric utilities in the US geography, while 61968 is more focused towards the international marketplace. So the IEC 61968 is having global acceptance than the multi-speak, which is mostly in US geography. Now from implementation point of view, IC 61968 is transport independent. That means you will get a XML file as an output, and then it is up to the user how it sends and receives the data from application to application. While in case of multi-speak, the standard is transport specific. That means it uses SOAP, that is Simple Object Access Protocol, which is a XML based messaging protocol for the data exchange. And it also uses sockets and various files for sending the data between two applications. So this is one of the major difference between common information model and multi-speak, where common information model is more generic standard, where it doesn't put any condition on how to implement the data exchange, while multi-speak is mostly based on SOAP protocol. Now let's talk about the interoperability perspective of multi-speak and SIM. Actually, the common information model and multi-speak both are being utilized for the data exchange between two applications. So the requirement is that both should merge together so that the vendors don't face any problem in keeping two different versions of their application. One is compliant to multi-speak and other is compliant to common information model. But as of now, we have separate standards which are the stumbling block for utility implementation. So if one application is talking over multi-speak and another is SIM compliant, the problem will be how to exchange the data. So better if we can implement the best of both standards and create one universal standard which can be implemented by all applications. So therefore, vendors want to avoid the need to develop and maintain the dual interfaces, because it is again a rework for them. So the current implementation in process is trying to bridge the standards and look for best of both worlds. At some of the utilities, we are seeing that the applications are SIM as well as multi-speak compliant, and both are coexisting for interoperation. But if you want to make it less complex for the data exchange, the best is that we will merge both of them and create one universal standard. So the efforts are right now going on towards that goal. So the multi-speak version 4 and future releases will now move towards IC SIM wherever it is appropriate. So the version 4 of multi-speak is internationalized and it will now support IC SIM compatible power system models as well. And then finally we will make effort to merge the multi-speak and IC 61968 SIM models. Now let's talk about another standard called green button. Green button is based on an idea that the electricity consumer should be able to download their energy usage information in consumer as well as computer friendly format. So if we have that kind of facility, this will help the consumers to empower themselves, and it will lead to new innovative processes as well as products. So entrepreneur created web portals will analyze the energy usage information and provide actionable tips if we have consumer as well as user friendly data format. So with the help of green button, what we are trying to solve is that the data which is being extracted for the consumer is represented in a standard format so that it can be easily consumed by various software applications, and the information is shared on multiple devices. Advantage of having green button is that SIM mainly takes care of the generation, transmission, distribution as well as energy market, but the consumer segment is still left unchanged, and there was a lot of innovation required for the future smart home automation as well as the demand response programs. So for that, the first requirement was that the data which users should get will be in a standard format so that it can be easily consumed by various consumer and applications. So this will help a single third party interface which will have various added services, and it will not depend upon the utility provided interfaces. So if the data you get in standard XML format, that data you can consume very effectively by developing a simple application for your own use. So in that way, the information which you get, you can further process without having dependency on the utility provided interface. This will have huge adoption in various activities such as demand side management, which will require continuous consumer feedback and its engagement to enable them for such kind of benefits. So if we want the consumer to be more participative, that is what we want to have in future, then for making the consumer more participative, we have to utilize such kind of interfaces where the data flows without any challenges. Now, the single interface which can be developed with the help of green button will allow robust applications to be developed for any analysis or the feedback. Now, what kind of visualization you can have with the help of green button? Since the data exchange happens using a standard format, the data can be consumed by any set of consumer applications. Say if the utility is sharing a data in a standard format, the user can view it on computer or maybe mobile phone, tablet, or any other device such as home automation controller and so on. So in that way, the application which is running on any of such kind of device will easily be able to consume this data because this data is in a standard format. Now, what kind of data the green button will exchange? The green button will exchange hourly load profile of past billing period or maybe current period till date, 15-minute load profile for most recent 15 days, daily load profile for past month or year, summary load data, energy usage and energy demand rating. It can be applicable even for gas water usage profile also, or you can ask for yearly summary data with monthly parts. So what are the various energy uses information you have? One point which is the meter point is usage point, which tells you that the location and the ID where the particular meter is connected and what kind of service category of this usage point is. Then you have per usage point the electric power summary or electric power quality summary. Then usage point will give you the meter reading. Meter reading, you can define what type of meter reading you want. You want the incremental or the interval read, or what kind of meter reading you want. Then you define what interval block if you want interval reading. Then what is the interval reading and what is the reading quality. So those kind of information you will get from the utility in a standard XML format. Now let's see how energy usage information data exchange happens. So the source of EUI can be the power utility or meter, or maybe the analytics applications which share data over either ESPI or SEP 2.0 or the web portal. ESPI is Energy Service Provider Interface, which is a standard used to create a standardized process and interface for the exchange of retail customers' energy usage information between their designated data custodians. So the data custodians can be the power utility, or maybe the third party interface where the utility has a agreement or contract for the data collection. Now ESPI is again a service oriented architecture based web interface which is extensively being utilized for exchanging the information. The alternate option is SEP 2.0, that is Smart Energy Profile 2.0. This we will see in next couple of videos, that how the SEP 2.0 is being utilized for the data exchange, or we can utilize simple web portal for information exchange. Now the data exchange happens using only single data format, that is the XML data format which we utilize, so that all the devices which are the user of UI can understand the data and take action based on that data. Now how the data will look like? So green button is again based on XML. So again, for the data exchange you need to first create the XML schema. So XML schema is nothing but the template which you will utilize for exchanging the required information. So you will have various schema tags where you will define what kind of information you want to collect from the meter or from the utility interface. So you have various views through which you can see the schema. So you can utilize XML Spy, which is a software program where you can see the schemas either in XML format or grid view format or the graphical format. Now what information you will select? So when you create the XML from the schema file, you will put the required data. What kind of data you will share? The data is the information related to energy usage, such as usage point, meter reading information, interval block, reading type, and the electric power usage summary, and so on. So these informations you will see encapsulated in various XML tags which will have certain hierarchical structure defined by your XML schema. So this schema will help you to create the message payload, and then this message payload will be shared with various end user applications. Since schema is a standardized format for data exchange, the receiving end application will be able to understand that schema information and will be able to take action accordingly.